This is Metabolic Radio, the podcast dedicated to keeping you informed when it comes to everything fitness. My name is Taylor Rampy, and with the help of my co-host Shane Pace, we aim to expose the truths about the health and fitness industry. The information and suggestions given in this podcast should not be considered as clinical or medical advice. Consult with a physician before implementing any information provided on this podcast. Shaner. Yeah, your new name is Shaner.
Actually, that's what my brother called me.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what we're going to talk about today?
I'm not 100% convinced.
You're not convinced?
No,
or you're not sure?
No, I'm not sure I'm convinced.
This episode is, in my opinion, should be titled, Why Your Cubicle Life is Killing You.
Well, I guess you're in control of the titles.
I am.
Which means because you feel that way, this is titled that.
That's why every episode is me introducing it as, hey Shane, guess what we're talking about today?
Exactly. Surprise!
And you say things like pizza and sewing, and I say no.
I know, which disappoints me.
But
we could talk about
you could eat pizza and sew at your cubicle.
What if we sewed pizza?
to your cubicle.
Hey,
it's a little late in the evening, really and we're both pretty tired.
It's a long week.
You're gonna have us. We're gonna say things that we think are funny that you probably don't think are funny. That's fine,
and I'm used to that. I do that.
That's true. When have we not done that?
No, I do that a lot, but I enjoy it. I like my humor.
So I think my main points that I think we should cover in depth about sedentary jobs. I mean, so when I say your cubicle life is killing you, what I really mean is, I don't know the stats on it, but I would say probably at least half of, if not the majority of Americans work more sedentary jobs than non-sedentary jobs, wouldn't you say?
Yes, yeah, for sure. So, again, based in the United States.
Yeah, so when we're talking about sedentary jobs, there's some major chronic issues that get developed as a result of working these kinds of jobs. What does the Magic 8 Ball say?
It disagrees. It says the outlook is not so good.
Oh, wow. We better double check our facts.
Well, maybe we want to change
but the points I want to make about it are poor sleep patterns are developed, postural deviations, muscle imbalances, joint pain, weight gain, muscle atrophy, energy, and I forgot this one, stress.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean,
that's a good point.
It ties in.
It does.
So
it correlates actually with all those things together.
And it would be interesting to see your perspective on this from your massage therapy background too, in terms of what have you seen that is, in terms of coming at it from a corrective approach in people who have worked more sedentary jobs that have, if they've elicited these types of outcomes as a result of their work. Because I'm sure a lot of listeners can probably relate to that type of lifestyle or that situation. I'm sure that somebody identified with at least one of those things on that list, if not multiple items.
Well, no, and you had me zoned completely out into Europe because I was thinking about
Europe.
Europe. I literally zoned into the European problem areas of the low back, and I'm wondering how that corresponds.
I don't know,
because I'm not sure how their cubicle life exists. I'm not sure if they have standing desks more or what.
That would be interesting. I don't have any information on that too.
That's why I was zoning. I was completely thinking about that.
Let's keep it domestic. Let's focus on the U.S.
It's got to stay in the United States. Because like I said, we know more about it. But that's what drew me in, because I was thinking about some of the things that happen when you're in a position that causes you to actually have muscle, as you put it, muscle imbalances.
Yeah.
And postural.
Because I would call postural deviations and muscle imbalances related, but two different things.
They are.
What I would see.
They are different things, but they do correspond heavily. And then joint pain, especially in the wrists.
Oh yeah. Oh duh. Yeah. Because carpal tunnel and computers and that.
Yep.
So where do you want to start? You want to start chronologically, where I got poor sleep patterns?
We probably should start on the pizza part.
Yeah. Pizza is
no.
Pizza is what leads you to something?
To
I don't know.
having more food than if you didn't have any food. Anyway, all right. Where are we going to start?
Poor sleep patterns.
Okay.
Do you want to go?
No.
No?
No.
Well, okay.
Well, let me throw this because it's only affiliated because I'm really blasted tired. So I will be talking probably a lot less. Oh, but I am in the
That's
red.
fine.
I am going heavily into the red. Look at that.
So, for me, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about poor sleep patterns as a result of this is the amount of workload that Americans have placed on them and place on themselves as a result of our commitment to careers in relation to other countries. So this is something that I do have some information on in relation to other countries in terms of how many, like minimum hours people work. Many European countries will work a lot fewer hours. They have a lot more paid time off. They have, in I believe it's Germany, I could be mistaken, but in Germany, I was informed that, and like I said, it could be another country, that there's a country in Europe that allows even men to take paternity leave.
Oh, yeah.
Where they can take up to like 2 years or something ridiculous like that off to just raise their child. And it doesn't even have to be right when they're born either.
Well, no, I can get that. That makes sense. That actually 6-week thing is a law in the United States too. I had a friend who
for men?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
They actually did. A good friend of mine actually did it years back.
Oh, well, I stand corrected, but yeah. I heard it was something crazy, like multiple years in there.
Well,
their position has to be, yeah. I don't know if it's paid or whatnot, but a position is.
Oh, you're talking there.
A position is reserved for them. But my point being, and I'm going to tie this back in poor sleep patterns, but what I mean is that we overwork. Mm-hmm. For sure, and we're very committed to our career path to the point where sleep becomes this distant. Yeah, right. That's not going to happen. You graduate. If you go to college, you graduate, you get your degree, you get an entry level position, you climb the ladder, you get married, you have kids, and you're like, yeah, bye sleep. That's not going to happen.
I was going to say I used to get, granted years ago, but about 3 hours at the most.
Wow.
And
I've never
and I used
had
to tell
that little.
I used to tell people all the time, I'd say, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people say that. Yeah. Well, guess what? You're pretty sleepy right now, Shane.
Are you
dying?
But I'm not dead yet.
Not yet.
So I'm not sleeping. That's why I'm on here and not wanting to talk.
But what it comes down to is...
But mine does not have to do with cubicles.
If you wait... all of these are interrelated. Poor sleep patterns contribute to weight gain.
Oh, yeah.
When you're working late at night, or you're just not getting enough hours of sleep because you work a lot, or you're trying to fit, or maybe you work a normal schedule, but you're trying to fit in all these other things outside your normal work hours that cause you to cut into your sleep, you develop poor sleep patterns. They're typically inconsistent. You're typically going to bed a lot later. You're getting significantly fewer hours than you need. You're going to bed stressed often, or got something on your mind, not necessarily stressed. Like, I don't have a problem falling asleep personally, but whatever I'm going through or whatever I'm thinking about, it affects the quality of my sleep big time. I can tell. Mm-hmm. Just having to get up earlier, having to get if the people got kids, they got to get up and to school or to activities and during summer and things like that. It just, all these factors, not just work, but a big time influence is work, affect sleep patterns. And over a chronic long period of time, that has an impact. I mean, it's easy for somebody to pull an all-nighter every once in a while, or to like...
I wouldn't call that easy, but yeah.
Oh, it's easy. It's easy for me to pull an all-nighter, but it's like a day or the next day or a day later that it hits me like a wall. But to initiate it seems to be easy. But
well, at least
for me,
I was going to go a slightly different direction. I was going.
Those are just some observations I've made that, and that is a lack of sleep, a chronic lack of sleep, can be a major contributor to weight gain. And another thing to think about is we can talk about with muscle atrophy is lack of sleep, it limits the amount of REM sleep you get, which decreases the recovery of your nervous system, and it decreases the amount of protein synthesis you undergo. So there's potential lack of muscle repair, or if you're fitness oriented, or muscle loss.
I was going to go a completely different direction, so I'm kind of curious to know what your thoughts are on this. So,
cool, go for it.
So when you talk poor sleep patterns, because it is true, but because it's sedentary, I can't say it.
Sedentary.
It's close enough. Whatever. It's that day.
Are we gonna? What was the thing you said?
Sue was gonna.
What was the thing you said in the last episode or a couple episodes ago about misdemeanors?
Yeah, misdemeanors. Look, dude, that one was a little different. This one is because I don't even care. That day I did care. This day I don't care. This is not caring. In fact, I kind of want to test the back of the mic, see if it goes completely quiet. But I'm not going to. Wow, really loud. But no, I was going to go down the road of it messes with your patterns because you sit around so much. You'll want to sleep more.
That's true. Yeah. Well, because
that pattern is very bad.
It's one of those ironic things about fitness is people are like, man, I'm so tired all the time. I work a hard job, and the last thing I want to do is go do some hard physical activity. Mm-hmm. When that, in fact, is one of the things that energizes you the most. Yep, right now,
for sure.
The majority of my workouts are done in the evenings, around the later afternoon, like 4:30 to 6:30 is usually sometime in there is when I'm doing my workout. Now, I train clients, I do other, I have other commitments and obligations. Sure. By the time the afternoon rolls around, I'm actually I'm kind of hitting that afternoon crash. I'm kind of demotivated, but I know when I go to lift or do any of my workout or activity, I'm going to come out of that feeling more energized. And I do every single time.
Right.
Even if it's not that great of a workout some days, because we all have good and bad, when I come out of there, I am recharged, which is weird because...
movement inspires more movement.
Yeah,
But that was one of the things I was thinking about that when I was looking at that, though, is the fact that it's not that sleeping more, because what is a sign of... What is sleeping a lot a sign of?
Metabolic damage?
Depression,
yeah.
So I'm going to tell you from a...
I didn't know what you were fishing for.
No, I know you did.
Could be a lot of things.
Okay.
But...
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of directions you can go. But taking it from a holistic type viewpoint, sleeping a lot could induce depression.
For sure, yeah.
So,
well, and...
backwards compatible.
The country... I don't know how we compare statistically to other countries, but I know that depression is a problem in the United States, especially in Utah. Yeah, I was just going to say, I can't remember if it's the top or if it's just one of the top, but
they're high on the
antidepressants.
Mm-hmm.
Utah is top for a lot of things. It's top for prescription abuse, pill abuse. I think it's not necessarily the top, but I think it's up there in terms of antidepressant prescription. Mm-hmm. A lot of pill stuff in Utah, actually.
All legal stuff usually. Well, the list is high for legal stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, which is interesting because Utah is actually one of the top 5, I think, most fit states. It depends on whether you're talking about weight.
Really?
It is, yeah.
I didn't know that.
It depends on what you're talking about. There's fitness by BMI or weight. There's fitness by other health markers. I can't remember. There's different categorizations that declare which health activity.
Okay,
there you go.
I was gonna throw out
Alaska. I think is actually the most active state, but it's not necessarily the healthiest.
Well,
state.
That's because there's nothing around Alaska.
I know.
You have to walk around and do stuff because there's nothing there. Well, okay, that's a lie. I'm kidding, people. I am joking.
We actually have listeners in Alaska.
I'm not making fun of Alaska.
Now they probably are going to turn us off.
I appreciate
because they're like, I have a million things I can go do right now.
Let me say this before you guys leave. Thank you for listening. All right. Anyway.
So, but yeah.
I was going to say something and now it's gone. It's left.
Oh no, I was just going to ask you, what was the other thing you wanted to say about sleep patterns?
It's left me.
Poor sleep patterns. Remember.
No. I refuse. I'm going to deny this.
That's fine. We can go on to the next thing. But I mean,
if my brain
everybody knows, I would say most listeners know that sleep, when you say like, I'm gonna get some better sleep, or I'm going to sleep 8 hours tonight. Or something. People scoff at that. Like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's I don't think that should be the norm, to be honest.
No, agreed.
That's
well, but again, let's be fair on this. So since even though this is topically related only because we're talking about sleep, but you and I both know that 8 hours is not necessarily what everybody needs.
Correct.
It depends on the individual. So there's people out there that, in fact, we've talked about Mike Matthews. Mike Matthews sleeps around 5.
Really?
Yeah, according to what he said.
Well, I have a client, and I believe he told me he gets like right around 6, and he says he doesn't even have an alarm clock. He wakes up and he's like, good to go.
Well, and that in and of itself is a sign that you've got enough sleep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If your body wakes itself up, especially, that's a good sign.
You can train yourself to wake up.
But I mean, there's other stressors that can impact you, even if you're getting quality of sleep. But you're right. I'm the kind of person, like right now, I'll be honest, I average like 6.
Right.
But what do I function best off of? I really do function off 8, like 8 to 8.5. My optimal amount. Like if I were to go, like I don't use the snooze alarm, but I do have to use an alarm to wake up. But on days where I that's rare, but when I can sleep in, if I go to bed at my normal bedtime, my body will naturally wake myself up right after 8 o'clock, but not on the dot, and definitely before like 8:20, something like that. Like that's I wake up, I feel super energized and recharged. It's perfect. Yeah. So I'm somewhere around that 8 hours and 15 or 10 minutes or something like that.
My normal sleep times are usually not anywhere near that, but that's because of family life, as you put it. And
you mean like the times that you sleep,
just
or
duration,
just the amount?
Yeah. When I'm out of town, I die. I die at the hotels. Yeah. I die.
Yeah.
There's a bit. I literally, they come in, they drag me out in a bag, and I climb out later when they don't know I'm. Anyway, we will stop joking in that direction.
I was waiting for the punchline.
Yeah, we're not going to.
It didn't happen.
We're going to stop going down the punchline zone. We'll get more serious for a second. But see, with me, because of the way my brain works, unless I have, this is the weird thing. If I turn a TV on, which is supposed to completely mess with your sleep patterns, my brain will stop giving me grief because I don't want to go to sleep. My mind goes.
See, I've heard that with some clients before, and do you think that because it's technology and light?
Yes, light is what's supposed to wake
studies do show that it affects quality of sleep, but not necessarily
depth of.
Yeah. Like how many deep cycles you go into, but I could see for individuals like having something to focus on. Like it's weird to say that, like to focus on something before you go to sleep.
It's sort of focus, I guess,
to drown out other
thoughts,
things. Yeah.
So this is what how
I also have another client who leaves the TV on when they sleep.
Yeah, that's what I do at hotels. Because I used to go to hotels and I couldn't sleep till like 1 o'clock in the morning because I could not sleep. So I'd go up and just
your mind is going
the whole time. Yeah. So I'd just go up and BS with the people in the front. But anyhow, as soon as I turn the TV on, because I'm not really trying to think through processes anymore. It's not that I'm necessarily focusing. I just have no reason to think. So I just shut down, and I'll go out really fast. That's why sadly now if my wife turns on the TV, boom, I'm out.
Yeah.
So there's no watching shows. So I don't watch TV's not worth watching anyway. But it's great for sleep though.
Yeah. So I think that
I think we should move past this one.
Yes, we should go to the next thing
because that's more important.
It's a major thing. It
is a thing.
I don't know. I can think of one client that I've trained off the top of my head, at least, who consistently gets enough sleep that I'm like a little jealous of. You know,
sweet. And they're really ripped.
Yes, they're actually in really great shape.
That's why.
Yeah. So it's definitely a problem as a result of that can be as a result of our sedentary kind of lifestyles and career
slowing down
choices
of the body.
And commitments.
We may be moving continually, but we're not even moving when we're doing that.
Exactly.
We're mentally pushing through stuff and building the stress levels that you added onto this list. You're building that like crazy, but you're not really moving around. And that causes the sleep patterns to get really messed up.
So along with that, I think the next thing we should say, again, is muscle atrophy is a huge symptom that comes as a result of a sedentary lifestyle or a cubicle lifestyle or just a sedentary job.
Oh, for sure, because you don't have to use them.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, I spend approximately a third of my life asleep and then approximately a third of my life doing personal stuff, and then at least a third of my life working, and you're spending that third of your life sitting down the whole time, or even not even the whole time, but for the majority of it, so 50% or more, that's a lot of time spent sedentary. And then a lot of people spend that other third of their life when they're recreating or doing their own personal stuff, watching TV. The average American watches 4 hours of TV.
At least.
And so if we're talking average...
I bet it's more than that now.
Yeah, if we're talking average numbers, I mean, you're spending potentially 12 hours a day, almost 100% sedentary. The body says, oh, great, I'm not under physical stress. I don't need this muscle. Let's lower my metabolic rate. Let's cut away all my muscle, and we'll store fat because that'll keep us alive. And that's a huge contributor to our obesity epidemic.
I have to completely side note and say
it wouldn't be a Metabolic Radio episode without it.
No, but this one is actually because of humor.
Oh yeah,
not because I'm like sidetracking on something else, but if Sue were in here, she'd be upset because we're not following this path at all.
Oh yeah, so Sue, we have this list that we're going down, and we're not. We're going left, right, backwards, just diagonal.
This is all for you. This entire episode of Jumping Around.
This outline you would hate.
Yeah, at least our following of it. And that's all. That's literally for the last about 30 seconds. That's what I've been focused on. That's why I had to bring it up. I'm like, that's really funny. We need a new number.
So what do you want to? Just again to touch upon it. What a part of muscle atrophy? Protein synthesis is a nice term to essentially say muscle building. Well,
that and diet; those are affiliated.
Well, yeah, but so when we're talking about muscle atrophy. That's like when I said you cut your sleep patterns down, you actually, or when you cut your total sleep down, you just don't get as deep a sleep or you're just good a quality of sleep, you don't get as much protein synthesis taking place, so you don't even repair as much muscle.
You wouldn't need to.
So if you're a fitness-oriented person and you are lifting weights and you are attending the gym and even though you have a sedentary job or maybe you don't have a sedentary job, you still can run the risk of muscle atrophy or lack of repair, I guess.
I would agree with that.
It's better. It's better than not.
Well, no, I would agree with you when it comes to the average person that goes in, again in the United States, into their cubicles and does their stuff, throughout the day because they're not going to be active. They're going to go home from a cubicle to watch television, so they're going to be sitting around. Somebody that's at least lifting and such, it's going to affect that a lot better because
better, yeah,
because you're going to get the reactions you want. I mean, this ties in. The more I've been thinking about it, this ties in a lot to getting back into the gym. If you take that in conjunction with the idea of getting back in the gym, that takes care of a lot of the problems that are tied to this.
So what do you mean by that? Just like people starting into a fitness lifestyle when they haven't been doing
so
before?
You'll see a dramatic effect.
Oh, yeah.
Dramatic.
I mean, honestly, I would just say if someone is kind of like we talked about in one of our very, very first episodes when we were talking about getting back into fitness, if you just attend the gym.
Even walking.
Yeah, alone. Even just walking. But when you're coming at it from a muscle retention and development standpoint, or at least preventing muscle loss or atrophy, going to the gym 2-3 days a week, maybe every other day. Yeah. Well, and any, of course. But I'm just saying, you would see substantial progress in terms of energy and muscle retention and possibly body fat loss and just better cognition just by going to the gym and picking up some weights and putting them down. And not even necessarily super intense, but just changing that environment from being so sedentary to stimulating muscle development would be a huge, huge change for a lot of people.
No, for sure. The one thing I was going to earlier jump into, and I'm the one who jumped us to the very bottom of your list, but I brushed the mic. That's me.
It's you're just a powerful person.
I know. I know that quite well.
People, we always talk about how we affect the mic levels on our recording system, and so that's what we're talking about.
Yes, and usually mine's are in the red or close there to it. But so postural.
Yes, this is going to be an area you're going to be
doing the deviations.
Knowledgeable.
The way that you sit, you slump. You slump, and so what happens is that causes a lot of problems in your trapezius. And that's
which is that upper back muscle.
Correct. Well, it attaches to your neck and comes out to your shoulders and goes down the middle of your back. Yeah. But that is the stress point for the majority of the United States.
Yep.
That's where they hold their stress. Like I said, in Europe, it's in the low back. I'm not sure why. I really need to study that one of these days. But It's because of how people sit. They tighten in, and when they're typing, they always draw their hands in because they have to actually type on the keyboards, and so it affects it in a big way. And then you start to have muscle restrictions because of things like we talked about a little bit, but trigger points and those kinds of reactions because it sees it as an injury.
Mm-hmm. Well, along with that, that's probably the most common postural deviation I see in clients, because the average person I works with,
hip restriction.
I do see that, but I would say even more so than that is protracted forward shoulder.
Well, they will for sure if they're this kind of thing, but they'll have a lot of hip restriction because their iliopsoas is
that's true, yeah,
tight, not tight, but shortened.
Yeah, but I mean, and even if someone is active without working the posterior chain, which is the entire backside of your body, muscle groups, you can still have that. Because everything we do, we're designed biomechanically to do everything in front of us. Mm-hmm. So your hands are always in front. You drive with your hands in front. You type on a computer. You write. You eat. So naturally, you're always kind of in this. Your shoulders are always semi-protracted, unless you have very good posture and you're very disciplined about that, or you're doing exercise in a fashion that counteracts those movements. So I find it really hard. I worked with two people specifically on that today alone, of getting them to loosen the pectoralis minor and get that shoulder to come back a little bit. And then
what did you do?
Strengthening. We did a couple stretches and then myofascial release. So put them on a
ball even agrees with you.
Yeah. Put them on a foam roller and just have them breathe and allow that pressure to kind of stretch the chest back out, and then going into strengthening the posterior chain. So a lot of pulling movements, rowing, really focusing on scapular retraction and depression to bring.
With that, that's what I was wondering if you use face pulls, because I
did do face pulls with one person today.
Yeah, that's actually really good for this, because it'll actually draw them backwards while you're doing it.
Yeah, but the problem is
you got to be consistent on that.
Some people are so bad with exactly, and that's one thing I was telling a client was you need to, like I said, how much are you stretching your chest and working the upper back and the trapezius, and they said I'm stretching it a couple times a week or something, and I'm like, for you, it's got to be almost daily. You know what I mean?
I would have them
because I can't even get this. Some people, I can't even get them to properly retract and depress their scapulas because their pecs are so tight. They try to do a row and they end up just pulling with their lats. They cannot bring those shoulders down and back because they're so tight.
That's why you want to rotate up.
Yeah,
and come back open it up with a face pull, because it's going to cause that. They can't do anything about it. But see, the biggest problem you may be addressing this mentally or not, but from what you're telling me, I think you're going to miss is the pec minor. So the pec minor.
No, I just talked about that.
Well, I know that. I understand that you were talking about it, but I'm saying that's the biggest problem is your pec minor. That's one of the reasons when you're sitting like this that it all starts to suck in is your pec minor draws your shoulder blades in. And so that's why I'm saying you were talking around it, but you never brought it directly up. So but when you start working on like your rhomboids, that's why I recommend doing a face pull in this circumstance. And when we were talking about our main exercises, the episode that we talked about this a lot in specifically,
and because we taled about this particular condition, you had recommended face pulls,
See, and I would still recommend that. I mean, doing like some trigger point therapy. Well, they'll probably scream in pain if they're really restricted like that, because it would be real tender, around the coracoid process. But I'm talking like they should know that, but I guess look that one up, because I can't show it to you without a video or a picture. But anyway, that restriction is because it's going to be really tight all the time.
Yeah.
But as they're doing the other movement, it's going to cause that to open up. You're right, because they can actually not necessarily cheat, but
they're just recruiting the different muscle groups.
Well, when they start working lats,
to mimic a movement.
Mimic is probably appropriate, but when you're working your lats, you can actually. We were talking about this fact. I think we talked about this last episode, where we could actually do it without movement.
Yeah.
In the cable roll, and I know it was in the last week or two, but which the stretching and stuff's going to change that, but it's not going to change the restriction of the chest because you're leaning in. Unless you pull back and mentally focus back, you're not going to have that movement. A face pull will change that.
Yeah.
That's
why sometimes I will precede pulling movements with actual static chest stretches to get them to open up. Because they just can't perform the movement properly. And so if people are, I mean, the majority of people, I recommend do more pulling movements typically in that to hit those groups than pushing movements.
I agree with that completely.
Because that's just what's on average needed. And so
they're restricted forward, so they have to get pulled backwards. So I guess one of the things that we're going to talk about, because I'm causing it to go this direction, even though we didn't know where we're going to go with this, is how to exercise through this. Most, like Taylor was saying, most stuff that you do in a cubicle-based environment, an office-based environment, causes your body to rotate in front of you. And so because of that, you want to do a lot more back-based exercises. Especially, like I said, with shoulder rotation, the rhomboids have such a key is such a key component to actually keep your shoulders stabilized that's why you want to do things like face pulls, which is from a high position, so that you can actually keep your shoulders and have them come back and down, which will actually help with this rotation. I think anybody that works in a cubicle, or an office,
a desk, or just anything
any
sedentary
office setup, really should do face pulls for that exact reason. It really will help them open up. Which, again, is one of the reasons why the next part of your list directly down the line is your muscle imbalances.
Mm-hmm. One more thing I want to add as an exercise just for some people to do.
Sure.
I don't really even have a name for it, but if you stand against a wall, we've talked about this one, stand against a wall, well, not even that one, like an overhead press. So without any resistance, stand right against the wall, put as many points of contact against that wall as you can, try not to arch back, try to have as good a stable, neutral spine as you can. Put your knuckles against the wall, bending your arms kind of in like a 90 degree or more acute angle. So like kind of if you think about touching your knuckles to the wall, touch your thumbs to your shoulders, and keep all points of contact against the wall doing an overhead press. Mm-hmm. That teaches you to retract those scapulas.
We need to do YouTube.
Yeah, we do. But that you do that and do that multiple times each day. That's going to really help with being able to retract the scapulas. And
it's called the empty press, dude.
It's called the empty press.
Yeah,
I doubt that, but
it is now.
But that'll help also stretch the chest. If you can't do that, if you find your elbows are coming off the wall, or your hands can't even touch the wall, or your shoulders still stay in a protracted position where they're rolling forward and inward, you've got really tight pectoralis muscle group, and then you go into some static stretching.
Well, now I'm going to tell you that's not the direction to go with this. So
you don't think static stretching is going to help with that?
No, I didn't say it wouldn't help. I'm saying that's not the direction to go with this.
Okay.
So here's what I'm going to tell you. In all honesty, you should do. You should find somebody who does a deep tissue.
Oh yeah.
Modality of massage therapy. Probably the deepest one that I know of anyway is Rolfing. Ida Rolf created it. It's really intrusive. It's actually comparable to surgery, but it will actually cause us to release a lot faster. It's not pleasant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you something that's going to be a pleasant moment, but a good massage therapist that knows what they're doing in deep tissue and knows how to deal with this will actually be able to get you out of this a lot faster than even the exercises we're talking about.
Yeah. I have a guy that I go to, and I'll just give him a shout out because he's awesome.
Dude, it's worth it.
But obviously Shane is a massage therapist as well, has that background, and he's helped me. But Vince Munguia, I can never remember how to pronounce his name.
Sorry, dude.
But I love you, Vince. You're a good guy. Anyone who needs, I don't know if he does technical Rolfing or not, but he has done some really great corrective deep tissue work on me.
I should talk to him, find out what he does.
I want to have him on the show, to be honest.
I'd be okay with that. If he's interested. Does he listen?
I honestly don't know.
If you don't listen, you deserve to have your name mispronounced. I just want that to be known. And if you do listen, you still got mispronounced too. Either way.
But he's located downtown Salt Lake, and so if anyone's local and needs some work, I definitely recommend him because that's who I see. And in one session, because I have the same issue. My shoulders protract because. I don't do as much pulling as I need to, and I like bench pressing and just different things that tighten it up. After one session, I had way more shoulder mobility and better posture after one session with him. So tell him I sent you.
Any good correctional massage therapy will help, but deep tissues is the best for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But
imbalances?
Yeah, I was going into that because this is a muscle imbalance. So what happens is you start having a musculature develop in the chest area. You may not see it because, like I said, the pec minor is deep. It's not a superficial muscle, so you won't recognize the muscle itself, but it'll actually be having a massive problem, which causes it to be always constricted. And so that's a muscle imbalance that you don't really realize is a muscle imbalance. Most of the time when people talk about that, they think it's something that's going to be a aesthetic, something that's visible. And most muscle imbalances are not visible at all. And in this specific case, that's one of the biggest problems is you have imbalance that causes the shoulders to rotate forward. But
yeah, and along with other muscle, I mean, so that being said, that's a muscle imbalance in terms of over recruitment and under development of particular groups. So over recruitment of the chest and overuse of the chest, and
right.
Underdevelopment of the posterior chain or at least the upper back.
Well, it's because you're not focusing. It's not that it's underdeveloped. It's not being focused on. It's so because your muscles are automatically going the direction that they are, rotating in.
Or I guess not development, but use.
Use, and that's they're not conscious use, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, that's why you want to change your focus and actually go to a direction that's going to cause your shoulders to rotate back to where they're supposed to be anatomically. Mm-hmm. And that's why when we were talking about that's why I kind of started to go that direction.
Yeah, but another, like you had just mentioned recently, was the other major imbalance is just hyper hip flexion.
Oh yeah, it's because of the way you sit.
Yeah, it's
tight. Well, let's take it all because this isn't just a cubicle thing. So let's take the United States as a recognizable thing on this because we drive so much. I drive a ton, and so the honest to goodness truth is do I have that shoulder rotation because of it? No, I actually lean on my steering wheel most of the time I'm driving, so I lean and it will push it back. Do I get it to an extent? Yes, because I still rotate in and hold the steering wheel. But the thing that I'm going to have the most restriction in is my hips. And it'd be the same concept.
But I've seen you. You're quite flexible.
Well, I've always
from your martial arts background.
Yeah, that's history. That's historic though. That's historic flexibility. But yeah, that's what I'm saying though. So what's it going to do? It's going to cause that restriction.
Yeah, and so when you're in that seated position, you're in what's called hip flexion, people. Mm-hmm. And so your hips are always in this semi-flexed position. So the hip flexors and the iliopsoas muscles are constantly in this semi-contracted position. So whenever you stand up or you try to do any type of hip extension by opening your hips, they're already tight, and you very rarely do that movement. So typically people have a hard time getting hip extension. That's why in a past episode I was talking about how I emphasize that with a lot of people because they just cannot seem to fire their glutes, and they can't get hip extension, and they have tight iliopsoas muscles, which causes that pelvic tilt,
right?
That then can cause back issues, and that's one thing that I've learned a lot when it's about corrective exercise is how influential the iliopsoas group is. Because I've even seen people that you'll look at them and it looks like they're crooked, like they lean to the left or they lean to the right because they'll have a tight psoas, which can be attributed or contribute to different things.
To the point where is scoliosis, which is actually
that too, yeah.
Which is actually another thing that is caused by.
But that's a spinal pattern.
Yeah, but do you know where the iliopsoas attaches? Because it attaches to the spine.
So yeah, I know that, but scoliosis is a separate condition besides muscle related.
I would argue that.
Really? I'd be curious what you know more about it than I do. So I'd be curious to see what your reasoning for that is.
That was one of my studies directly, was dealing with scoliotic patterns. And so there's winding and there's different things that are involved in it. Yeah, winding causes it to twist a different direction. It doesn't go side to side. It actually turns it in
rotation.
Yeah, and you'll have like an S curve and all that kind of stuff, and I can define that in a different way than you'd actually talk to most people.
The reason I say that is because I would think that I've been taught you cannot correct, you can only treat a scoliotic pattern.
Why?
Because I was taught that it was a spinal non-muscular related spinal thing. I'm not very well versed in corrective exercise, that's why my terminology is poor.
You're golden. Here's the thing.
That's why I want to know your reason.
I want you guys to understand what we're going to do now, because Taylor and I are going to literally talk about this, because this is something that I want him to understand. So that's why we're going to go in the way what we're about to do. But so does bone move itself?
No.
So is it unless the spine is fused, okay? Because that does happen on a natural basis. It's very, very rare, but it does happen on a natural basis. It happens more surgically, and usually that's straight. So my question is, what moves bone?
Muscles do.
Muscles do.
But so my question for you is, because I don't know for sure, isn't
why we're doing this.
Scoliosis? Is there a genetic predisposition?
Yeah, it can be, but I'm going to tell you it's more training in my opinion.
Because I've trained a woman with a ridiculous scoliotic pattern to the point where her spine,
their natural pattern
came out to the side of her body and protruded outward. I could touch. I could see her spine on the right side of her low back.
Yeah, no. But again, does bone move itself?
No.
Which means that muscle has to be involved. So if you can cause, and this is when okay. So I studied, one of the things I studied, for anybody who actually understands this, I studied the St. John method of neuromuscular therapy, and they deal with scoliotic patterns. Okay, and they can actually get it to the point where it's almost not visible anymore. You can get rid of it almost completely. So,
really?
Yeah, and it deals with whining and all that. And that's why I was going to say most of the time they'll talk about a C curve. I don't believe in a C curve. A C curve doesn't exist in a spinal scoliotic pattern. It's actually an S curve, because what will happen is you'll get the C in the spine itself, but the upper one, the cervical spine, will curve back, which is actually causing an S. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's all based on muscle. So what happens is, in the C curve, we'll take that as an example, and the C part of the curve of it is you'll have restrictions on one side, and that's what's causing it to contract. So if you get those to relax, and you have the other ones tighten, it'll straighten the spine.
No, and I get that concept, but for this was a really radical case from what I've seen, but that you've probably seen more than I have. Her spine, if you're looking at her from behind, it was, I can't remember if it was left or right, but it came down, it moved out laterally to one side, and then rotated and protruded backward. That's called
winding. Yep.
And then came back down and attached at the sacrum.
That's winding.
So, I mean,
you want to know how you deal with that?
How do you even correct that? That's something that radical. It had a 30-degree rotation, I believe is what she said.
You work on the muscles on the internal aspect of the spinal cord. The spine. So what you have to go deep in through especially if it's in the low back, from what you're describing, that's what it sounds like.
But what I'm trying to get at is, you're trying to say that it's 100% correctable?
Through in my belief, yes.
Really?
Now, as the years go on, you'll have calcification, you'll have other things which will cause it to become not fixable on this level, because the bone will actually.
This was someone in her mid 40s when I was working with her.
At that point,
she'd been seeing chiropractor for decades.
And I'm going to tell you, chiropractic. Okay, so I'm not hacking
and massage therapy.
I'm not going to hack normal massage therapists, and I'm not going to hack chiropractic by what I'm about to say, but it's going to sound like it, so forgive me, people. But chiropractic does not deal well with muscle. Okay, I'm not saying it's bad, but it doesn't deal well with muscle, because it deals with realigning the spine. The problem is bone doesn't move itself, and so if you don't do it,
so you make an adjustment, and then the muscle just pulls it back into.
That's the reason why you have to continue. Exactly right. So you have to keep going back to a chiropractor, and it's legitimate. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's what I'm saying. I'm not hacking. I'm a believer in chiropractic.
Well, what you're getting at is that they treat the symptom, not the source.
They treat
the
symptoms pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and but the average massage therapist cannot deal with this well. When I was going through my courses, I touched the iliopsoas. Now, to do that, you've got to go deep in through the intestinal tract. You've got to move through to do it.
I've had mine touched, and it hurts.
Yeah, and that's the whole point.
It bruises. You bruise from it
if they do it wrong. So
well, you can.
But I'm saying you have to be able to know how to do that. Like I've worked with all the musculature underneath the trachea, and that's an interesting thing. I've worked with the muscles around the eye. So there's a lot of things that the majority of massage therapy does not deal with that I've dealt with because of the studies that I've done. But what I'm saying is, with winding, you got to go deep in, because you're having musculature on the
these aren't superficial. These aren't superficial muscles.
Absolutely, deep. You're on the inside, not the outside of the spine. So you've got to go in and touch those and make those respond and actually start to release. And if you don't do that, you'll have the continual whining is a bigger problem by far. Most Cal, we're sidetracking huge off cubicle life, but I think this is important anyway. We'll probably end up talking about this more than anything else. But when you have a scoliotic pattern, whining is almost always involved in scoliosis to an extent.
Yeah.
You're talking a more extreme case. Mm-hmm. But is it workable? Yes, as long as you haven't had the actual brain stopping. I'm looking at the bone in my head.
You said it getting calcified.
Calcified. Hey Sue, you could tear us up about that one because that's
calcification.
That's really funny. Yes, but if it fuses itself together by using that, then you're gonna have a problem because you're gonna have to break that apart. And the only way you're really gonna do that is by a surgery, going and have it cut. Yeah. But as long as the discs are still there, which in most cases on scoliosis they're gonna have a wear. And you might have ruptures, but that'll actually repair itself if you can get it in the right positioning. Yeah, and so you use that. You use like I said, the equivalent of deep tissue. You use a lot of trigger point therapy, and you work it in a very specific fashion, cause it to release in one side and tighten in the other side, which will put it back in the position it's supposed to be in, which will ultimately straighten out the back if they keep going. Yeah,
but that's the problem is it's something you have to do on such a consistent and long-term basis. Yes. And that I would say that's probably why the majority of people that suffer from that continue to see issues is because I imagine you have to do that's got to be a daily practice for years.
It would be a lifelong. So once you've actually got you wouldn't have to keep going to a massage therapist or anything like that, but you would
once you were aligned properly.
Right, a good massage therapist will actually have a big effect on this pretty rapidly. Mm-hmm. Then they got to start doing things like yoga and getting themselves into a better physical position where their body's not going to go back into that.
Well, if they go into old movement patterns, it could exacerbate it. Yeah,
which they will, and that's what I'm saying. Homeostasis for them is going to be wound. Mm-hmm. It's going to have that pattern. So they'll either have what I call an S curve or a double S curve. So double S is a little more intensive, but like I said, and then there's whining, which makes it even more so. But a good massage therapist that knows what they're doing on this specific category, because you can have a good massage therapist that has no idea what I'm talking about, and like I said, this stuff is amazing what it can do for you. The stuff that it does for the cervical spine is incredible. Military neck, you don't want to work the back of the. Most people, if they go in to get their military neck worked on, I'm using that like you know what I'm talking about. When let's say you have whiplash, we've talked about this a little bit, and your spine straightens out. That's military neck, okay, and so. You don't.
Because the cervical spine has a natural curve to it.
Exactly right. And so when you work on the back of the neck, okay, so here's what happens. So it straightens out. Okay, so here's the back. It straightens out, and you work on the back of the neck. Your neck's going to start going the other direction, and it'll tighten it down the other direction, and you'll start to have major problems in your neck, and you'll start to get arthritic problems like I have naturally in my neck. Those kind of issues are caused because you have to work on the internal aspects of that, not the external aspects of that. You don't want to work on the inside. You want to work on like the sternocleidomastoid. Yeah. And you want to get in. And again, if you don't know what you're doing, you could kill somebody. So this is something I don't want somebody to just go out and try. But you have to move the trachea. You have to go in behind and work on the muscles that are running down the spine on the inside. And so if you don't do that, it'll actually cause it to get worse while you're trying to take out the pain. So and a normal massage therapist, their normal reaction would be, well, I got to work with the pain areas, and so they'll go into it, and your neck will feel better, but it'll progressively get worse. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, for sure.
That's why a lot of this stuff dealing with is highly important who you go to. Yeah. But that's I didn't want to go into this as deep.
No,
as
it's fine. I think it's a great thing to talk about because. There are people that have scoliotic patterns that don't even realize it, because there are some scoliotic patterns that are minor, comparatively speaking to radical ones. But
let me give you one answer to that really fast too. If you watch somebody walking down the street, and I will speak directly to a lot of you women out there. And they'll have a high shoulder.
I know what you're talking about.
Because they'll be carrying their purse on one side.
And then the dead arm.
And then they have a dead arm. Yeah, we talked about this years ago.
You tell me about this all the time.
But your walking pattern is called a gait pattern. What happens in your gait pattern is you're supposed to distribute the energy of your walking with both arms. And so when you have a purse or something on one side all of the time, you'll have a restriction, and your arm will slowly but surely die. Yep. It won't move anymore. It's not like it's dead, but it won't move anymore.
It gets it's weighted down by a purse that's multiple pounds.
And you're blocking it.
And you're constantly carrying it in that same side. And then so you don't get as much swing.
You're trying not to because you're controlling
you have
the
a
purse.
shorter range of motion movement in the shoulder, and of course it's just going to sit there naturally.
Yes, and so that'll cause a problem. But what comes out of it on a scoliotic pattern is you have a high shoulder because of it. You'll have a low shoulder.
You have the asymmetrical distribution of weight and pull on that side,
which causes your back to rotate.
I've seen this happen with myself and carrying a backpack. So
dang it, you took away my humor. I was going to say Taylor likes to carry a purse. I'm kidding. He totally doesn't. It's a European carry-out.
It's a satchel.
It's a satchel.
No, it's actually just a gym bag.
It is just a gym bag. In fact, it's sitting right there. But yeah, that's the insane problem with guys when they do that. Mm-hmm. Because if they have it on one side to the other side, you're going to have that. And so anytime, and you can see it with anybody that comes in. We talked about this years ago when we were training with martial arts stuff, that you can actually see the deviation in the shoulders.
Now that I've done a basic exercise therapy cert. Mm-hmm. As well. Obviously nothing on the level that you've probably done with your massage therapy stuff, but I can see it now. I can see postural and muscular deviations. And
do they do gait patterns?
And they do gait patterns. Yeah,
that's good.
I can see based off how where their foot placement is going, how far they lean forward, their spinal positioning, shoulders, hips, tilting, all that. Basic views of people's just incorrect, or I guess, like I said, postural deviation. So it's interesting now that you walk down the street, like you said, an average person's not going to realize that someone has a dead arm walking, the other arm is swinging. It's like, well, they carry a purse or a bag in that arm constantly.
All the time.
You can totally see it now.
Oh yeah,
it's really interesting.
Yeah. We have a topic for our next episode.
What you want to know? What I think we should do, since we're hitting pretty
high
level. I know people are going to want to hear the rest of what we got to talk about. Let's part two it. We'll cover we'll cover joint pain, weight gain, and energy and stress in the next part.
That's cool. I just don't. I want to touch this in more depth because we're actually talking about it as something that I don't think you're going to hear on very many other podcasts.
Yeah. Do you want to continue on this one, or do you want to throw that in and finish it on part two?
I think we need to back out of where we're at because we've gone too far as I'm concerned time-wise.
All right, guys, we'll air these back to back, not daily back to back, but chronologically with when we release.
It may just be this week that is from one day to the next.
Yeah. So we covered talking about sedentary jobs, how the cubicle life can kill you. We talked about poor sleep patterns with it, postural deviations, muscle imbalances, which we will finish in the next one. We also talked about muscle atrophy, and then in the next episode, part 2, we'll talk about joint pain, weight gain, energy levels, and stress.
We may actually talk about narrower than that, but at least we'll cover it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do part 3.
Well, I think we're on something that we haven't talked about in depth. I think it's worth talking about more. But anyway, I will be quiet now, so off we go.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Check it out on the next episode where we'll wrap it up. And thanks for your listenership, and we'll see you on the next one.
And I'm on Mars.
Bye.
See you.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Shane and I hope you learned something new and exciting today about your own health and fitness. Head over to metabolicradio.com. There you'll find our bios and our results-driven programs that are designed to help teach you everything you need to know when it comes to getting real permanent results. You can also sign up for our newsletter to get free weekly updates. To chat with Shane or I, just email us at taylor@metabolicradio.com or shane@metabolicradio.com. We would love to hear from you. You can also join the conversation on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search for Metabolic Radio Private Forum. There you can request to join the group. We would love to add you to the conversation and answer your questions on the show. And hey, if you like our podcast, please help us grow our community by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. We would really appreciate your help. Thanks again so much for all your support and your listenership. Now go out there and spread the good word of fitness.